While writing earlier today, I was thinking a lot about tension and conflict and the difference between the two. So I figured I might as well do a little talk about it here for you guys. Talking about how tension is what could happen and conflict is what does happen, but going a little bit more in depth. To begin with, let's talk a little bit about tension, and I'll give you an example right off the bat. Tension is the feeling you build for your reader when the half-dead leaves rustle in the bitter Halloween breeze, catching moonlight and casting dark spots over a rain-wet street, as a little girl walks home from her friend's house, too busy counting her candy to notice the shadowy figure with blood-red eyes and yellow-stained teeth stalking her oblivious journey. A scene like that, with those small but big details, can really show your reader the danger without undermining its power by keeping it mysterious. But building tension like that for your reader creates that sense that there is conflict around the corner for this unassuming little girl, and makes your reader want to read more. Tension often comes before conflict, but not always. So when you build tension into your story, for example, foreshadowing a great and terrible war that the characters are trying to avoid, always pay it off with a satisfying conflict or equally satisfying resolution, whether you're doing so right away or later on in the story. To go further with the Great and Terrible War example, a diplomatic resolution should be just as tense, surprising, and significant as the war itself would have been, which would have been a full conflict scene. So you can do this with scenes of witty arguments, sudden new kinships between opposing characters or unexpected dynamic shifts, character betrayals, power plays. In a way, those are all different kinds of conflicts that you can bring into your story to relieve the tension. Paying off tension really is just as important as building it up. So here's a few little tips and tricks on how to build up tension. For one, there's foreshadowing. So if your characters ever feel uneasy, the whole Star Wars, I've got a bad feeling about this, that's bringing up foreshadowing and building tension. Over-describing the surroundings, like I did just a little bit earlier. Focusing on the unseen and the hiding places where danger could lurk. Ask yourself what thoughts make you uneasy and give you anxiety when the lights are off and you're all alone. Get to the deep, dark, creepy places of your imagination and run wild with the ideas you find there. Raise the stakes. Give your characters time constraints, insurmountable odds even, and make sure that they all have big consequences. The more hopeless it looks, the more tension you're writing into your story. And complicate matters and create dilemmas, but don't fabricate unnecessary drama that has no real stake in the progression of the story. Readers don't want that. And as a writer, it can feel like a cop-out. And then finally, bring in a little bit of fear of failure. Ask yourself what the consequence of failure would be for your characters and for this world. If it's not a strong enough consequence, figure out a way to make it the last thing your characters would want, and that'll always amp up the tension. So now for a little bit of conflict, where the tension of what might happen becomes what does happen. Conflict is the moment the little girl finally raises her head from her bag of candy and stops dead in her tracks, because the long-limbed creature that doesn't seem natural is standing there on the street in front of her, and it sprints at her at full speed, and she's forced to react. Her reaction, whether it's fight, flight, or freeze, is the beginning of the conflict in that scene, the action scene, and the confrontation. So conflict should always come after tension, and must be built up to feel substantial and significant to the story. Otherwise, conflict can sometimes fall flat, like a poorly set up joke. There are 7 types of narrative conflict, the 4 basic ones being person versus self, which is stories where the struggle is internal, derived from the self. Person versus person, stories where characters oppose each other. Person versus society, so the characters struggle against man-made institutions. Person versus nature, where the struggle is external, derived from a force of nature. Then there are the 2 other different types of conflict, person versus machine, so pretty self-explanatory, think Matrix, or person versus fate, or the supernatural, where they attempt to escape their fate, defy their destiny, or struggle against supernatural odds. I guess that's all there is to say for now about conflict and tension. I'll probably end up doing some more conflict themed vlogs later on, as I've kind of gone very far with this in my notes. But for now, for today, stay writing.